Welcome back, audience. Welcome back, boys and girls. Hope you're doing good. Hope you had a good new year. Um, I know the last year, for the people who took this game onto themselves, this game of consciousness, and began life to live life in the right direction, it was very challenging. Um, okay, this year is going to be very different because last year was more like uphill, but this year is going to be more like just going down for a ride. But not to say that it's easy, but the hardest part is already been done. The breakthroughs already have been made, you see. Um, and Polarity shifting, and basically the luck is moving towards the people who are have chosen the this right way of life, chose to um, it's just the right way of life, let's just say. Okay, um, rather than living from the brain, started living from the heart. Okay, and it's not easy. The beginning, it's difficult. The beginning is difficult, and not a lot of people, well, a lot of people tend not to uh, go there because not a lot of people voluntarily walk into the fire, as I say, right? um, but that's exactly what it takes to break through, because if you all your life you've been moving in one direction, to start moving another direction you need a lot of energy, and you're going to be moving against the tide. Other people still want to go an old way, and you don't want to go that way anymore, so everybody's going to try to drag you down while you know that this is right. And even though you have to face a lot of pain, you know that this is the right direction. um, and But every time you break through it, there's a real revelation that comes on, and a realization that, oh, that's how you live the game of, that's how you play the game of life. um, and every time you conquer that specific, you know emotional, uh, disorganized emotional state, whether it's pain or pressure, every time you overcome it, there's certain type of confidences that, all right, I can do this. If I can do this, then what else uh, life is gonna throw at me? It's like, bring it on. I'm ready to play the game. And so what will happen is you'll notice that there's going to be a shift. If the last year the luck perhaps wasn't in your favor because you decided to go towards the right way, and so that was, it seems like all these challenges came along, and kind of try to convince you like in the Truman Show, um, not to keep on sailing his boat, right? All sorts of storms and everything, but he persevered, he kept on going, and eventually he hit the end, the answer. Turns out that it was a show all along. So that's what happened. But you see, this year, there's going to be a lot more luck going toward the people who live from the heart, and a lot more misfortune towards the people who are choosing the black side or the dark side, and especially those who are consciously practice black arts. There's going to be, you know, um, it's not going to be fun. for these entities, for these beings, for these people, actually, because let's just be honest, they're people. And people are the portals through which all these energies come in. Um, sure, you can say that there's more to a person because even though they act from the ego, there's also a soul that right now is like a tiny, tiny little bit and completely overwhelmed by the ego, and it doesn't really have any kind of say until the ego is going to be destroyed through suffering. So, a lot of people who double down on their ego, they choose the path of hell, and but everybody's going to be released from the ego eventually, right? Uh, those people who don't double down and kind of give in to the truth, uh, even though at the beginning it may be harder, then you break through and it becomes easy because you voluntarily go through that path where you know there's, like if you go here there's pain, you go here there's pain, you go here there's pain, but there's one path that you know that if you're going to go through this, there's going to be pain, but there's going to be permanent end to it. And that's the one you pick. It's like a labyrinth game. All the ones are dead, all the other ones are dead end, but there's one path that you can still break through. They're all hurt, but some of them are repeating, and one of them hurts and is gone. Okay? It's like a birth. So you pick that path, and things start picking up for you. However, this is why it's so important to understand and kind of have a certain type of understanding that there's going to be a lot of people who pick the wrong way, suffering, and that you can help them. And the only thing that you can do is to isolate yourself, but not in a, not, I don't talk about in a physical sense, but I talk about in the, non-reaction sense, right? A lot of people may be losing mind, but your peace must remain as it is. Um, and so that peace will be your protection. And no matter how much they try to taunt you, because they will want to dump some of that pain onto you. That's what they always done. But your stillness and silence is your protection. And so this way you can navigate the world, seeing people acting really, you know, a little bit crazy, not in a good way, but um, through non-reaction you can continue doing your thing. You're really creating a certain type of energy bubble in which you live and connect with other people who live in the same energy bubble. Okay. um, and you don't sacrifice your boundaries, and you don't go, and if there is a little bit of a trigger that you feel that somebody is triggering you, you immediately go into the stillness and face everything, and you seal it. Okay. This is why sometimes people call these seals, which is like a symbol, right? And you gotta seal the gate through which was unfair energy exchange happening, right? You seal those gates, and you build up your own energy, your own momentum, your own luck in life. Okay. Really, the game is, if I could just explain it in a simple terms, which brings me to a next subject that I want to talk about, and that is um, the progression in life, not being stuck in a cycle and a loop, but progressing. That's what I'm interested in. Um, I consider the stuckness in one cycle a pathology. But I don't consider anything bad when, like, so for example, some challenge happens, like some negative event happens to you. I don't consider this like, oh, why it happened to me. No, I consider this as a seed out of which you grow your new desire, fulfillment of your new desire. You see, because if you um, take real life example, if you've been in a relationship with somebody that no matter how hard you try to make them happy, they would still refuse and actually would become quite angry and mad at you for trying to make them happy, you know? So if you experience this type of challenge, right? The desire is very strong to to be with somebody, or to be with somebody who's reciprocating, and so that desire becomes very, very strong, and that's good news. Everything is fine. So you see, like, I don't consider that bad, but being in that loop is bad. You see, and to progress in the game, you have to change your past, and I want to explain to you what I mean by changing the past, because there are look, one thing that we have already established, and you can check my videos. You can check my video about Chronos, Kairos, and Ion. Okay, I talk about those three different types of time, and one belongs to the physical body, one belongs to the mind, um, and and then another one belongs to the soul, right? The soul, mind, and body. Okay, brain is body. I just want to clarify, and the physical time is chronos. It's chronological time. It's a physical time, and what it does, it stitches things together, one after another, like a frame by frame, and so it creates the continuity. Okay, so that's what physical reality does. It stitches events together, it creates the continuity, creates the story. Okay. Um, so when I say change the past, I don't mean chronological past. Okay, because chronological past is pretty much the way it was. That's the way it was, but it doesn't have intrinsically any kind of negative or positive connotation. It's just pure data. Okay, so you can remember the things from the past, and there was just information. There is no negative or positive connotation. But if you remember things from the past and it has a negative, you know, charge to it, then that is chronos. That's the recording of the event that matters. Okay, and the idea is that it's very healthy to have a healthy brain and have a good chronological memory. This type of memory is sup- supposed to be cared for, and that's very useful. It's very useful to have good chronological memory. Okay, however, the kairos memory, which we already established, memory, time, thought, or pattern, this is all the same stuff. Memory, past, thought, time, it's the same stuff. We have different words for the same stuff. Okay, and what it actually is a geometrical structure which is spinning and producing um, everything that you've experiencing. But I don't want to go into too much into metaphysics of this. I just want to keep it more to, you know, above the water. So why this kairos time is important? Why do you have to change the past of kairos in order to have, you know, a new type of pattern that you're living in your life? That's because it determines the events, the significant events. It's like synchronicity, right? Like You may be going through life, everything is great, and then suddenly there's some sort of dramatic, argumentative energy starts entering your life, and you're like, what the hell, Everything was going great. Why that energy entered? You see, that's because there's something that needs to be alchemized at that deeper level from which kairos is being generated. Okay. um and kairos is kind of reading from the template. Okay, so there's this past and the future that belongs to kairos, not chronos. Okay, and the past is always broken or dark. That's the definition of the past in the world of kairos. The past is always broken or dark, meaning it's negative. The past is always negative, and the future is always ideal. Okay, so the idea here is to take this past of kairos and replace it with the future of kairos, and the past becomes the same as the future, and so therefore is now more ideal. And that is how you make uh, that is how you generate new pattern in your reality. um, okay, so the ideal future template already exists. Okay, you can call it your higher self, the mind of God, but that's the version of you that is ideal. It's already exists. This is why you don't invent yourself. This is what the brain usually does. You try to build yourself up rather to discover it and remove the brokenness and darkness to reveal what you already are. Okay, that's the kairos future is ideal. And so it's a sacred geometry of the mandala, if you will, which is your perfect template. You can call it God, if you will, because God is a certain type of ultimate energy, the 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 key out of which everything else springs. It's like if you look at the Metatron cube, it contains all like that, right? This is essentially uh, the primordial code of life out of which everything else stems from. And so that ideal template is you. Okay. Now, in order for you to reveal your true self, and the only way this can be done is through alchemy. This is why you have to enter the space of ion. Uh, okay, aeon. I'm sorry. I think it's pronounced aeon. I think you have to enter the space of aeon because that's the causal, uh, which is or your soul, which causes everything, right? So and so that's your heart, right? So, okay, in order for because like I said, the past is broken, okay, and the future is always perfect, and in the center, that's where your heart is, and that is determines. That's where the alchemy happens in your heart between your higher self and your lower self. That's where the alchemy is between your body and the mind. That's where the soul is, and you do your work in your soul through the attention and awareness during the moments of emotional turmoil and going in, and that's how you do the alchemy. To illustrate this a little bit better, imagine the flower of life. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And one would be like perfect, and you can imagine the petals of that flower, and then you see there are the petals, and then there are these gaps, right? So imagine um, imagine like one that is perfect, and another one is that the opposite. So let's just say the opposite mandala of perfection, that's your kairos past, and you take each little, excuse me, yeah, and each little petal and each little gap over there is the heart of coal, is dark. Okay. And and that's the past of kairos. In the future, okay, I want to explain this a little bit better because I'm stuttering here a little bit. So all right, so there's a perfect template and there's a broken template. And the perfect template, imagine the flower of life that has transparent petals and white gaps. Let's just say that, okay? I just intuitively imagine that's how it's supposed to be. Now the opposite of that is you see the black gaps. Instead of being white, they're the black gaps, right? And distorted petals, okay? So basically it's the opposite. It's the you begin with where the boundary is supposed to be. There's openness, and where there's openness, there's boundary. And in the perfect future template, it's the opposite. Okay, and so now we have a perfect future template, and then broken past template, which we all come with. No, you see, this is another thing that I want to say, that the guilt is an illusion by not knowing and not being taught the reality that no one is actually broken. That is a default starting of this game, you see. And this idea that there was a traumatic event, no, you already had that past broken, and that created that event, which then perpetuated throughout your life, let's just say, if you were never dealt with it. Okay, so this is why there's no such thing as trauma. There's no such thing as like, oh, my my parents messed me up, or my partner messed me up. Nobody did any of these things. These events were generated because of your broken past template. So that's why it's not your fault. It's it's the feature of the game, not a bug. Okay, nobody is broken here. Okay, but you see that kairos past, kairos future. All right, but then you say, okay, so if the past is always like this and the future is always like that, how am I going to like convert the past into the future? And the way it is done, because they don't disappear, your higher self, the perfect, and the lower self, the broken, in kairos time I'm talking about, they don't disappear. What happens is, because that's the feature of the game, right? The level of brokenness is determined by possibly by the yuga of the game. And right now we live in the Dvapara yuga, which means it's 50-50. So that template is going to be 50% broken. Okay? In a Sat yuga, perhaps it's already perfect. Upper template is perfect. The lower template is perfect. So there's not really a lot stimulus for the growth. You're just playing and enjoying life, but there's not a lot of maturity happening. Okay, now, without going too much into this, let's just stick with this. All right, so how are we going to now compensate for this brokenness? Because we have one ideal and then one broken, And the way we do this is we start doing the alchemical work, and through that alchemical work we pay attention to the brokenness of, which is negative emotion. The energy is flowing through the brokenness of that mandala or that flower of life, and creates a negative emotion. And so if you put your full attention there, what you're doing, you actually correcting for its imperfection. And the way you correct for its imperfection is you have to start creating some sort of crystal that diffracts the light and back into the perfection. You see? Something that is perfect, something that is imperfect, and at the center you're generating this crystal which corrects the imperfections of the past into perfections of the future. Okay? And so that crystal is your actual soul. That crystal is your actual soul. And as you can see, through the alchemy, you are growing your soul. And the bigger is your soul, the more it is correcting for these imperfections and diffracting light back into perfection. Right? That's how you do it. This is why you can never eliminate the darkness. You can only correct for it. And this is why it's not a bug, it's a feature. And but if we have enough people who have already corrected for that reality of that darkness, despite the darkness, you can still have a lot of harmony in your reality. Okay. And so this is the way I see, this is the way I visualize of what's going on. And I really like this model because it's close to geometry, physics, math, which I really like to use describing consciousness. Which, by the way, these consciousness models that are based on physics, mathematics, and geometry these are what's going to unify all the religions, because all the religions are just the belief systems about something that is actually tangible and energetically real. But before I go into these beliefs right now, let me just finish this. Okay? So anyway, I just wanted to say that this is how you correct for the past in order to have a ideal template of so-called future. All right? And once you correct for it, you grow your crystal, and you even start feeling your identity. Whereas before it was like, if you really not do anything and you just feel whatever's going on in you, you feel some sort of discomfort, and that was your identity before. Now you feel some sort of could be emanation of bliss or peace, and that's now your new identity. That's who you are now. Before you were moved by fear, now you're moved by joy. It changes. Okay? And your whole brain is being rewired as well. And that's what I mean about, that's what I mean when I say you gotta change your past, because past determines everything that you see here, that's stitched together frame by frame, is the past. This is already done, right? Because when you're projecting the movie on the screen, that's already been recorded. So therefore it's the past. Everything that you experience is the past. Okay? And so what you want is, you want the past to be already pre-record it in an awesome way. All right, so to summarize everything in a more like a down to earth view, I would say like this: there's this ideal destiny or mythology people talk about. That's your ideal uh, kairos, okay? And then there's also um, like, okay, I should say the destiny is determined by the energy patterns, your emotions or attitudes. We use the words, but they really like these states of consciousness that are primordial. They're more like emotional, energetic states, right? That's where it all starts. So when you start being a little bit like, more blissful and peaceful, that's your new state of vibration. From there, you now are going to be creating a new types of images, okay? And so that's mind, like from the soul to the mind, you're creating a new types of images. And these images, they are events, right? Mythology, events, story. And these events now are going to be stitched into the story that Chronos is in charge of physical world. But as time goes by, those new events are being stitched in that um, fabric of linear time, because kairos is pretty much injecting. And so then you have these events that are you're going through the life, and instead of before you would do something um, that you would expect the positive outcome, and you would receiving a negative outcome. Now you're starting to see that, like, oh, now the pattern is different. I'm receiving a positive outcome, um, you know and so through the synchronicity, kairos injecting new events. But and these events is your imagination, and your imagination is primarily determined by your vibration, your energy, your soul. So you see this, everything starts with the soul. This is why it's not the brain at all. And like, what is necessary is a map. And but not, you don't need lots of books or complex things. No, consciousness is not complex. There's emotions that you feel, you can observe it for yourself. That's your soul. It's obviously vibrations, emotions. It's this primordial energy where aeon lives, right? Then you have the mind, which is your imagination, right? And that's images, okay, from um, energy patterns to more of the imagery patterns. And then you go in the physical world, where that becomes a more symbolic, right? And so then that's, you start naming things. That's a chair, that's a tree, and stuff like that. And so now you are putting the symbols on the images. So the world is always the world is always like a symbol for the image, and the image is for the primordial pattern or the image. Okay, vibration, vibrational pattern, imagery, symbolism. Words are symbolism, right? And so um, I just want to say something about this error where people sometimes make to go, and they go backwards, and they use religion in a negative way, because what they do is they do not go to their soul. They do not face their pain. They do not face their suffering. Because they need courage, and remove all distractions, to muster up the courage and surrender in order to start alchemizing everything and grow as a soul. So they remain as this dark ego, the heart of coal, so to speak, right? Which is what's being built when you are not really alchemizing. So that crystal is becoming, dark. Um, so now, uh, And so what they do is they create an image, right? There's a symbolism. For example, the symbolism may say Jesus. That's the symbol, because it's just Jesus. It's just it's just sounds, right? That symbolizes something in the imagination. And then people maybe imagine a man, right? In imagination. And that's when they stop. They say Jesus, a man, will help me, and they don't even go to face anything in their heart, and they keep that Jesus as a drug to as this coping belief system to cope with their existential pain. And so this is where they stop. And so then this is a religious fanatic, okay? And that is not a uh, that is not a person that living in the right direction. Is not the person that is, you know, awakened, and it's not a person that is on the path of a hero or growing their soul, right? So, however, you can do exact same thing, use the word Jesus, maybe imagine something, even as something as a man. But if you're also that leads to energetic shift inside of you, then now you are actually uh, there's a meaning to that word. When you say that word, there's a meaning to it, and you know that it's not a imaginary person that you're imagining, and just say like Jesus is the only way, but they don't really actually understand what it means, because Jesus means the savior. And what is the savior? Is your soul, is that crystal that you're building up. Okay, so when you say, when you have that bliss inside you, that energy that emanating from your heart, or from your aura, whatever you want to call it, but from your energy, you can call that Jesus if you like. But if you feel it, then when you refer to it, you are referring to the a real thing. Okay, but to discover that, you probably had to go through um, facing a lot of your pain. You probably had to do this to discover that energy. Okay, and the same thing in the feminine way, Mary Magdalene or Mary, exact same way. If people are just praying to that and it's stuck at the image, but they don't experience the energy that that's supposed to be referring to, which is like this peace and love. If you don't experience that, then Mary means something else. It means like a coping mechanism. It does not mean that state of consciousness. Okay, and this is why sometimes people may be using these words, but they know what they're referring to, and sometimes people are just uh, pretending that they know what they're referring to, uh, and wearing a mask. And these people are not really religious people, I should say. The word religion in my book is kind of relighting, and so the alchemical work that you do is real religion. Because if you're not relighting anything, which is putting your attention where it's asking you, that pain is asking, say, hey, look here, look here. And if you don't look there, and you create an image of Jesus, and Jesus is going to save me, now you just created, I'm sorry to say that, but it's not Jesus. it's a it's just a belief system, um, that you use as a drug to pacify your pain. It's the exact same thing whether you use it in such way, or whether you drink alcohol or take drugs to alleviate your pain. It's the exact same thing. Okay. So to these people, the image of Jesus, they call it Jesus, but actually they're talking about Satan. Why? Because what is Satan is that heart of coal. If you have a heart of coal and you're not really alchemizing anything, and from there you create the image of the good person, but you still have that, then the meaning of that is going to be negative. Okay? And this is why Christianity and all other religions, they refer to the meaning. They try to communicate the essence of it. However, if the people are not moving towards this direction, not living, through the soul, not living through the heart, there's nothing you can do. And in fact, those religions become kind of uh, insidious. It produces fanatics and very dangerous people. They go to wars, crusades, and if there's other religions, how dare you talk about other religions? They're all infidels. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts that because nothing has changed inside. They're all still full of demons talking about God. You know. Anyway, I just try to describe what is going on, what we see, and you see, and it's like another thing I want to say about this superiority. Because if somebody listen to you and you are actually living life in the right direction and you're becoming happy and happy and you create abundance for yourself and genuine success, not through manipulation but through actual change of your vibration, imagination, manifestation. If people start seeing you like that, they jealousy, envy is a normal reaction to people who are still have a heart of coal. They could go in that same direction as you do, but they would have to start living from the heart, which is the beginning is difficult, is hard, but everybody can do it. Um, Especially if they have people who already going on that direction, living life in such manner. If you just hang out with them and um, just do the same things that they do, approach life in the same way, have your own little symbolism if you want. Like if you want to call that energy Jesus, call Jesus. If you want to call that energy something else, you know call something else. It doesn't matter as long as there's actual real energy that is there. um okay, and that's the difference between you creating an image that is not corresponding to the meaning, and so every time somebody attacks that image and says something like negative about that image, you create, let's say, an image of a good person, and somebody attacks and says like you ain't shit, and so then you get upset and it hurts you. That's because you created an image of it, and the meaning still remain the same. But if you have the meaning different, right, and if you feel in your heart a certain way, the image of you, um, if you create an image about yourself from that meaning, then okay, it's you. It's the image of you. The image corresponds to the meaning. And then if somebody attacks that image, the meaning doesn't change. Then you have no reaction to it because the feeling inside of you is still amazing. So why would you react to it? And so there's nothing wrong to have that image. It's fun to play with images. You know, it's your character. See, look, I'm playing this character right now. That's the image of you. But if you have a vibration for that character, that's great. But if you created that character without the corresponding meaning, then it's just an image, and that's going to be attacked, and you're gonna get hurt. So that's what I'm trying to communicate. Um, that people go through, people go to that level, but they do not go all the way to the soul, and so that's where the stuckness is at. Well, I think that's pretty much it. And as you can see, most life that you live is not the scene. Like, for example, we have the day and night cycle, right? We have a day and night cycle. And so most of your life that you, excuse me, I shouldn't say most, half of your life that you live supposed to be something that is like a just this type of internal world. You live most, I shouldn't say most, but let's say half, you live internally, and half you live externally. Okay? That other half that is external, the scene, and then behind the scene, and the scene. Everybody sees the scene, but they don't see behind the scene. Okay? If you live life behind the scenes in a good manner, the scenery is going to change easily and automatically, because that's just the scenery. That's not you actually live. The night cycle is your actual life, and the scenery is just a scenery. Is you just watch a movie that you've created, like a story. But mythology, you determine with your vibration. The events you determine with your imagination, and the story you determine with your action, right? And that's it. And that's how you play the game of life. Which, by the way, every game that you play, it has these components. And so if you understand these components, because it has the alchemical component, any game that you choose, it has alchemical component first, because you got to draw that. In the word education is educo, is to draw from within. You have to draw that vibration or that identity from within, whatever game you're playing, right? Like, let's say if you want to become an actor, singer, or whatever, you got to draw that. So there's going to be a challenge, and you're going to have to alchemize that. Then you're going to have to create an event, and then you get the scenery and the story. So it doesn't matter which kind of game you play, they all have the same principles. And that's the good news. If you learn the principles, you can become anything you want. Which, by the way, like, that thing is like anything you want. Like, for example, how do you know what kind of desire are you going to have? And if you look deeper, you can kind of see that it depends already. It depends already on what level of game you're playing. And it's not really, I mean, we all have like a different forms of it, but the mythology is always the same. Depends with whichever, level in the story we're playing. Which means that if you desire something, that means that it's already there. If your ideal future template already exists, which means it's already there, and all you gotta do is reveal it through alchemy. That's the first thing you do. And once you realize that desire in your heart, which means that whatever state of consciousness the fulfillment of that desire would bring is already here with you through the process of alchemy. Now you fertilize the seed, so to speak. Okay, the first thing is done. Then you move on onto the image, and which is like, okay, now that I feel so amazing, what kind of form is it taking? And then you start daydreaming or night dreaming. Start dreaming from that new energy. Okay. And so this is also what stops the obsessive thinking, because obsessive thinking is actually pointing you to that you need to alchemize something, right? Because there is a thought, which is a symbolism. There's an image, which is your mind, the body, the mind, and then of course there's the soul. And you got to trace it back from that thought to the image, back to the soul, and feel that energetically, and face that on the energy level. Okay. And then when you do that, the obsessive thoughts stop, because you trace it back to the source of it and you alchemize it. And so basically you changed kairos. Your past now is different. Okay. um, and really I don't know what else to say. It's 51 minutes, but I hope you had fun. And I hope you'll have a lot of fun playing this game of life. Peace. See you in the next one.